Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
You're gone again. That's all it said, scribbled in my own cramped handwriting. A note left on her pillow, right beside the spot where her head rested just last night. I don't know why I wrote it. Could have texted. Could have called. But I left it on the pillow like some archaic message in a bottle, hoping she'd read it when she came back. If she came back, I'm sitting on the edge of our bed, holding that note, feeling the ache spread from my spine into my shoulders. It's like a low-grade fever burning in my muscles. My knees hurt when I stand. I guess I'm out of shape. Or maybe the body just registers betrayal in its own language of pain. The day started slow and heavy. Woke up with a throbbing in my lower back, something that comes and goes ever since I turned 40. Couldn't bring myself to do my usual stretches, so I just sat on the mattress, elbows digging into my thighs. The house was silent, except for the old radiator pipes clicking inside the walls. I glanced at her side of the bed. Empty. The covers still slightly indented where her body had been. I told myself she just went for an early jog, but her sneakers were still by the door. I tried not to jump to conclusions. That's a funny phrase, isn't it? Because the conclusion's right there, staring at me, and has been for months. It's me trying not to see it. Like looking directly at the sun. Too bright, too damaging. So you squint and look away. I forced myself to stand, walked to the living room. My daughter, she's 15, was in the kitchen, rummaging through the cupboard. We nodded to each other. She gave me that tight-lipped smile that says everything's normal, or at least we're going to pretend it is. She asked if I wanted tea. I said no. My lower back twinged again, so I grabbed a couple of ibuprofen from the drawer and swallowed them dry. I stared at the front door, half expecting Catherine to sweep in with a breezy excuse. But the house remained quiet. That's when I wrote the note. Took a piece of paper from the mail stack, scribbled "You're gone again" with a pen I found on the counter, and placed it on her pillow. It was pure reflex, I guess, like part of me wanted to mark the space she left behind. I spent most of the morning trying to distract myself with chores. The day was overcast, gray sky, a smattering of rain that blurred the windows. I started a load of laundry, cleared old leaves from the front gutter. Each movement hurt my back, but I pushed through it. Physical pain's easier to handle than the knot in my stomach. Around noon, I found my phone buzzing on the table. A text from her. "We'll be home late. Don't wait up." No explanation. No apology. It made me laugh. Some kind of bitter grunt that died in my throat. There was a time she used to check in after every meeting, saying she missed me. Now a 7-word text was the best I could get. I remembered the night before. I'd prepared dinner. Salmon, her favorite. Pan-seared with lemon, dill, a drizzle of olive oil. She always loved salmon. I went out of my way to buy the best cut from the local market. The guy there knows me by name. He joked, "Date night, huh?" Because I'd also picked out a bottle of wine. The same brand she adored back in college, the one we used to share on the floor of our dingy little apartment, when we believed love was bulletproof. I lit candles on the table, unscented, because she always sneezes at anything vanilla. Put on a vinyl record we used to dance to. I wanted to recreate something we'd lost. Or maybe something I lost. She came home late, smiling, but the smile wasn't hers. It was forced, like she borrowed it from a stranger. She carried a shopping bag. Inside was a bright red scarf with a monogram that didn't match her initials. I recognized them. Some fancy letter swirl, not even close to a K. She said a colleague gifted it to her. I said nothing. I just looked. Then I walked to the kitchen to slice lemons for the fish. Our daughter stepped in at one point, saw the bag, the scarf, my face. She didn't react. That's what got me. Her eyes slid over the evidence as though it was old news. A piece of me died right then, realizing our daughter, my little girl, had been part of these lies. Or maybe not part of them, but aware. Covering for her mother, making up stories about the salon, handing me half-truths so I wouldn't question too deeply. Had it been a month? A year? How long had the deception been circling like a slow poison? I remember the daughter's eyes, how they flicked to me and then away, like she couldn't bear my gaze. She's a sweet kid, tries to keep the peace, bringing tea when we argue, offering some fragile band-aid to a marriage hemorrhaging from the inside. As though a warm mug could fix this. Maybe she's learned that lies are tradition in this household. Maybe she thinks it's normal. That's when the slow, heavy silence began. I'd just retreated into myself for a week, barely speaking, going through the motions. Each day, my back pain got worse. I'd lie awake in bed, hearing Catherine breathe beside me, but feeling a gulf between us wide as an ocean. It didn't help that I knew who he was. I'd never met him personally back in college, but stories circulated. His name is Michael Roberts. Used to fight with a buddy of mine, Kelvin, over something in those days. Some old rivalry. A woman. Or an insult. I'm not even sure. But I knew the name. So after that silent, suffocating week, I reached out to Kelvin. Partly because I needed a friend. Partly because I knew he'd still carry that grudge. And I had a feeling he'd know what to do. It was a quiet meeting, in a dim bar. Kelvin's changed a lot. He's heavier, older, but the same sharp eyes that always seemed to see right through me. I told him I suspected Catherine was having an affair with Mike. He scratched his chin and nodded. Said something like, "That bastard's always had a taste for another man's territory." Then he asked if I wanted to bury him. The question was casual, like he was offering me a light for my cigarette. And in that moment I realized I did. Now, before you think I was planning some physical harm, no, that's not me. Not yet. My father taught me that violence rarely solves anything, but Kelvin has a knack for picking at people's weak spots, shining a spotlight on them until they wither. He knows how to talk, how to push the right buttons. All I told him was, I want him to hurt. I want him to lose something. Kelvin nodded again, smiling thinly. He's not squeaky clean. People in the office might want to know about certain indiscretions. That was all. He paid for the drinks, patted my shoulder, and walked out into the swirling cold. A month later, I filed for divorce. I didn't throw a plate, didn't raise my voice. I didn't even cry, though I felt tears knotting in my throat. Catherine saw the papers on the dining table one Sunday morning. She was in her bathrobe, hair still damp from the shower. She stared at the documents for a full minute, her breath hitching. Then she looked at me. I just said, "It's time," and I left the room. She followed me, voice quivering, asking if we could talk. I didn't respond. The next few weeks were a blur. Our daughter sobbed quietly at night. Sometimes I heard her behind her locked bedroom door, stifling her cries. Once I tried to comfort her, but she brushed me away. She wasn't crying for me. That truth stung. She was scared for her mom, worried about what would happen to their bond, to the life she'd known. Catherine and I lived under the same roof but were strangers. She'd vanish for hours, come back drained. I kept my mouth shut, but inside I was on fire. I could feel it searing my gut, traveling up my spine. Sometimes the pain was so bad I had to lie flat on the floor just to stop the muscles from tightening. I started noticing small changes in her. Less makeup, more tears. She'd walk around pale, flinching at every word I said. Even though I rarely spoke, sometimes I'd catch her rummaging through old photo albums or standing in the hallway, eyes closed, as if trying to remember how it felt to be happy. Then came the night I cornered her about the scarf. It was childish, maybe, but I wanted to see if she'd keep lying. We were in the living room. Our daughter was upstairs. The television was on mute, flickering shadows across the furniture. I picked up that red scarf from the coffee table, dangled it in front of her. "So, your colleague," I said. "He always gives gifts like this." She swallowed. "It's not. I mean, yes, sometimes he just." I chuckled, a sound that had no humor. What's he do? Spend hours picking out personalized scarves for the women in the office. She didn't answer. I saw the tears pooling in her eyes, but I just watched her. My back throbbed like someone was drilling into my vertebrae. I said, "You should return it. Wouldn't want him spending unnecessary money on you." Her lips parted, but no words came. She nodded, sniffed, clutched the scarf to her chest. I turned away, heading upstairs. I heard her faint sob, like she was choking on regret, but I didn't stop. That was my kind of revenge at first. Sharp, cutting words that left her bleeding inside. But I knew I wanted more. Somewhere along the line, Kelvin must have pulled the right strings, because I heard through the grapevine that Mike was suddenly under investigation for misreporting a project budget, some financial fiasco. Maybe it was true. Maybe Kelvin faked the evidence. In any case, the rumor spread fast. Mike's pristine corporate image was tarnished. A few people whispered about other skeletons in his closet, maybe relationships with subordinate coworkers. The office world can be vicious when it smells weakness. I didn't celebrate. That's the strange part. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but all I felt was an ache. A slow burn of poison in my veins, telling me that tearing down Mike wouldn't fix what was broken in me. Still, I let it happen. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings ground forward. We started splitting assets, deciding who gets what. I agreed to let Catherine keep most of the furniture, the car, the house in her name, anything to be done with the charade. The heartbreak had made me numb. I'd watch her sign papers with trembling hands, tears slipping down her cheeks, and I'd say nothing. She'd wipe her eyes, pretend to be strong for our daughter, then excuse herself to the bathroom. I tried to keep my face impassive, but every time I saw her like that, something inside me twisted. The physical pain in my back felt like a branding iron, marking me with guilt as well as fury. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that it was her who betrayed me, so she had to suffer the consequences. But deep down, I felt the cost. Every piece of revenge came at a price, and it was draining my soul. I saw it in the mirror each morning, hollow eyes, a mouth set in a grim line. My shoulders hunched with tension, like I was waiting for the next blow. One night, about a week before the final hearing, I was alone in the living room. The lights were low. The old vinyl record player was sitting in the corner, collecting dust. I still remembered the track we used to dance to, her head on my shoulder, my arms around her waist. The memory flickered through my mind. So I got up, walked over, and set the needle onto the record. Static first, then a gentle melody. My chest tightened. I slumped onto the couch, let the music spill over me. I thought about how certain we were back then, believing we'd never grow apart, never become strangers in our own home. The pain in my back spread, as though each chord hammered my spine. She stepped in quietly, standing near the doorway. She didn't speak. I glanced at her. Her face was drawn, eyes rimmed red. I could see she recognized the melody. It was the one we'd listened to in that cramped apartment, the same one we played the night we decided we'd be together forever. For a second, I wondered if she would cross the room, hold me, ask for forgiveness. But she stayed put, arms wrapped around her torso, as though trying to hold herself together. I let the music run its course. Then I lifted the needle. She opened her mouth, perhaps to say something, but no words came out. I stood and walked past her into the hallway, the tension in my lower back almost buckling my knees. She reached out, barely, her fingers brushing my arm. But I pulled away. That's how we existed until the day of the final hearing. Two wounded animals trapped in the same cage, avoiding each other's eyes, feeling the weight of everything unsaid. Our daughter was spending more nights at a friend's place, avoiding the minefield at home. The hearing was surprisingly short. Just a judge stamping papers, verifying signatures. No fanfare, no dramatic confrontation. As soon as it was over, she and I parted ways outside the courthouse. She tried to speak, but I turned, and the look on my face must have been enough. I recall the light drizzle on my suit jacket, the gray sky overhead, the faint murmur of city traffic. It felt so profoundly final, I almost forgot to breathe. Yet that wasn't the end. Because that night, I found myself in her new place. Yes, I went there. She'd moved temporarily into a small rental on the other side of town. Our daughter was there too, unpacking boxes in the living room. I showed up unannounced. I'm not sure what impulse drove me. Maybe a need to see her broken. Maybe a need to see if I was truly free. She let me in without protest, eyes flickering with confusion. The apartment was mostly bare, just a couch, some boxes, a lamp. The echo of our old life rattled around in that space. Our daughter was rearranging dishes in the kitchen. I guess she sensed the tension, because she quickly made an excuse and slipped upstairs, leaving us alone. Catherine stood near the sofa, arms folded protectively. I sat down on a chair, every movement punctuated by a sharp pain in my lower back. She watched me, uncertain. After a moment, I inhaled deeply and asked, "So, how is he?" She blinked. "Who?" "You know who." My voice was calm, but it was laced with venom. She pressed her lips together. "It's over," she whispered. Things got complicated at work. There were rumors, investigations. He resigned. She paused. He said he needed to move on. My mouth twisted. Did he mention me? A flicker of recognition crossed her eyes. She knew I'd had a hand in it. She just didn't know how. He suspected something, but no. He just left. I leaned back. The pain in my spine flared. "Well, that's what you wanted, right? A fresh start." She gave a short, desperate laugh. "I don't know what I wanted, but I didn't want this." Her hands trembled. "I'm so sorry." I was silent. The rage was still there, coiled in my gut, but it tasted stale. Like old coffee, a part of me felt pity. Another part felt triumph. And somewhere in the mess, I felt an ache that nothing could soothe. "You should be," I said finally. My words were slow, measured, dripping with coldness. "But it doesn't matter now." She sat down on the couch, head in her hands. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. Our daughter hates me." "She doesn't hate you," I interrupted. "She hates this." Catherine nodded, tears glistening on her cheeks. I noticed how her shoulders shook, how she tried to stifle her sobs. I stayed still, letting her cry. It should have been satisfying to see her so broken, right? My revenge. But the pain in my back kept throbbing, reminding me that I was broken too. We stayed like that for what felt like hours. The muted hum of traffic outside, the flicker of the overhead light. Eventually, our daughter reappeared at the top of the stairs, saw the scene, and her expression crumpled. She hurried down and wrapped her arms around her mother. Catherine clung to her, sobbing into her shoulder. My daughter's eyes flicked to me, a mixture of confusion and pleading. I just sat there, rigid. The bitterness inside me warred with a strange paternal protectiveness. I wanted to gather them both in my arms and say everything would be okay. But there was a voice in my head hissing that everything wasn't okay, and never would be. The next day, I moved my stuff into a small condo downtown. My new place. Sparse furniture, just the essentials. I told myself I'd start over. But I carried that heaviness wherever I went, like an iron band around my chest. Work colleagues asked if I was all right. I shrugged it off. I started drinking more coffee than I used to, skipping lunches. My back pain worsened. Kelvin called, asked if I'd heard the news about Mike. I said yeah, I heard. He was out of a job, reputation damaged. Maybe he'd find a new place across the country, start from scratch. Good riddance. Kelvin sounded pleased with himself, but when he said, "You owe me one, buddy," I just replied, "I know." Weeks passed, and the divorce was final in every sense. Legally, emotionally, we were done. I threw myself into work, financial consulting, spreadsheets, client portfolios. Sometimes I caught myself staring at the ring-shaped indentation on my finger where my wedding band used to be. The pain in my back flared in those moments. I'd pop more ibuprofen, rub some ointment in, and keep going. Then, one late afternoon, I came home to find a box at my doorstep. No return label. Inside was a single envelope and a note in Catherine's handwriting. "Please, read this. It's not for me. It's from her." I opened the envelope. It was a letter from my daughter. Pages of raw emotion poured out. She confessed how she lied to protect her mother, not because she hated me. She begged me to talk to her, to not shut her out. She said she was tired of secrets, tired of pretending. She told me she loved me, even though she'd never said it out loud in the chaos. She was terrified that I'd vanish from her life. Halfway through reading, my eyes blurred. I tried blinking away the sting, but something deeper was unraveling in my chest. For the first time since the night I discovered the scarf, I felt tears welling. A fierce ache gripped my throat, constricting it. My heart pounded, and the tension in my back flared so badly I had to sit on the floor, leaning against the wall. The tears came, silent and hot, sliding down my cheeks. I realized I'd become so obsessed with vengeance, so consumed by the betrayal, that I'd barely acknowledged my daughter's pain. I'd let her believe I didn't care, that I was too angry to see her. That night, I drove to Catherine's apartment, again. The sun was setting behind the tall buildings, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It felt almost cruelly beautiful, like the world was mocking my misery with its splendor. My back hurt so much I winced with every step up the stairs. I knocked on the door. Our daughter answered, eyes widening in surprise. She stepped aside, letting me in. Catherine appeared in the hallway, looking exhausted, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She glanced from me to our daughter, uncertain. I said, "I want to talk to her." "Alone?" Catherine nodded, disappearing into another room. My daughter led me to the small living room, where half-packed boxes were stacked around. She gestured for me to sit, but I just stood there, trying to find my voice. Finally, I spoke. "I read your letter." She exhaled a shaky breath. I didn't know what else to do. My throat felt tight. "I'm sorry," I managed, "for everything. I should have listened to you more. Should have talked to you. I was so angry. Hurt. I shut you out." She dropped her gaze. "Mom told me it was all her fault. But I didn't want you to hate her." I nodded, inhaling through the pain. "I know. And I don't. Well, I hate what she did. But I don't want to hurt her anymore." Silence expanded between us, thick with unspoken regrets. Then I reached out, put a hand on her shoulder. My voice caught. "I love you, kid. I'm still your dad. That doesn't change." Her eyes shone with tears as she leaned forward, and I pulled her into a tight hug. My spine roared in protest, but I held on, ignoring the pain. The warmth of her small frame against me was a reminder that not everything was lost, that some pieces of our bond could still be salvaged. Catherine hovered in the doorway, uncertain. I let our daughter go and turned to meet Catherine's gaze. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then I gestured for Catherine to come closer. She did, hesitantly. She opened her mouth to speak, but I shook my head. "I'm not here to drag up the past or shout at you. I just wanted to make sure we're all okay." She looked down, tears forming. "Thank you," she whispered. "I know I hurt you. I hurt both of you. I wish I could take it back." "You can't," I interrupted, my voice rough but calm. "And I can't pretend it never happened. But we have a daughter who deserves better than our silence and cold stares." Catherine nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "If you want me to stay away, I don't," I said. "She needs both of us. We'll figure something out." I glanced at my daughter, who was wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. The tension in my lower back eased just a fraction, like it recognized something was shifting inside me. In the following days, we worked out a schedule for visits. I'd pick her up from school a couple of times a week, spend weekends at the condo. Sometimes she'd stay with her mother. We managed to be civil, almost like old friends. Catherine and I exchanged polite words, even soft smiles now and then. It was a fragile peace, but it was better than the Cold War we had before. Still, every time I saw Catherine, I felt that pang, reminding me of what we were and what we lost. She looked so tired, her face drawn, guilt etched into every line. I tried not to hate her. Some days I succeeded. Others, the bitterness flared back up. And then one evening, our daughter asked if we could all have dinner together, just once, at the old house. She missed it, missed the three of us. She said she wanted to pretend, if only for an hour, that we were still a family. I didn't want to disappoint her, so I agreed. Catherine hesitated, but eventually she nodded. The house felt haunted when I walked in. The furniture was the same, but the energy was off. We sat at the dining table we'd once shared in happier times. I'd picked up groceries, salmon again, ironically. Tried to replicate the meal I made that final evening before everything spilled into the open. Catherine set the table with the same unscented candles. She looked at me across the flickering light, eyes brimming with what seemed like old sorrow. Our daughter forced a cheerful conversation about her classes, her upcoming events, the new group of friends she'd made. I listened, tried to smile. Catherine did the same. We all pretended the tension wasn't there, that the walls didn't remember every argument, every tear. The salmon turned out decent, though I had to fight through the tightness in my back whenever I leaned over the stove. We ate quietly, only the clink of utensils against plates filling the silence. At some point, I glanced at Catherine's left hand. No ring, just a faint tan line. She noticed me looking and pulled her hand back, as though ashamed. Then, after dinner, we drifted into the living room. Our daughter sat on the couch, flipping through channels on the TV. Catherine sank into an armchair, looking small and lost. I remained standing, leaning against the wall. The pain in my back flared, so I shifted my weight from one foot to the other. "I think I'll go upstairs," my daughter said eventually, forcing a smile. "I want to see if I left some books in my old room." I nodded, and she left. Catherine and I were alone. The house seemed to hold its breath. She stared at the coffee table, at the faint ring left by a cup from some distant evening. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "I know I've said it, but I need to say it more." I took a slow breath. "I know." She buried her face in her hands. For a moment, the only sound was her uneven breathing. Then she looked up, tears shining in her eyes. "I was lonely," she murmured. "I know that doesn't excuse it. I just need you to know. I never wanted to hurt you. But I felt invisible. I felt an old anger stir. I worked long hours, sure. I probably neglected you. But you could have talked to me." She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I tried. Maybe not hard enough." And then Mike. He seemed so attentive, so eager to listen. It was stupid. She closed her eyes, voice cracking. I wish I could turn back time. My heart pounded. I wanted to lash out, remind her of how she destroyed our trust, how I had to watch our daughter wrestle with guilt. But the words died in my throat. Because all I saw in front of me was a broken woman. The same woman I once adored. The tears streaming down her face weren't fake. She was grieving, too, maybe for the love we once shared, for the family we'd been. The ache in my back grew stronger, like a wave of tension radiating up my spine. I exhaled shakily. "It doesn't matter anymore," I said, voice quiet. "We can't fix it. Not now." She gave a brittle nod, wiping her face. "But maybe we can at least move forward, right?" The question hung in the air. I realized that vengeance had driven me for so long, but it hadn't given me any peace. I'd undone Mike. I'd cut her with my silence and coldness. Yet my body still ached. My heart still felt heavy. Revenge was like swallowing glass. Shreds of it remain inside, slicing you from within. So I nodded. Yeah, I said softly. We can move forward. She took a trembling breath, as though relieved. Thank you. I didn't answer. Words felt insufficient. Instead, I walked to the old record player, the same one that had gathered dust. I lifted the vinyl from its sleeve, placed it carefully on the turntable. Catherine inhaled sharply, recognizing it immediately. The needle touched down. A moment of static. Then the slow melody started, haunting, nostalgic. The tune we once danced to in that tiny apartment, dreaming of forever. It washed over the silent room, filling the space with ghosts of the past. She stood up, arms folded around herself. I closed my eyes, letting the music carry me to that memory of her in my arms, back when we laughed about what color to paint the walls. There was a phantom tightness in my chest that matched the pain in my spine. I opened my eyes. She was watching me with a mixture of longing and sorrow, tears still glistening. Neither of us moved to dance. We weren't those people anymore. But we shared that moment, letting the record spin until the final notes faded. Our daughter came down the stairs, standing in the doorway. She saw the tears on her mother's face, the tension on mine. She didn't say anything, just hovered, uncertain. I turned off the record player. The hush that followed felt like standing at a graveside, paying final respects. Catherine sank back onto the armchair, hugging herself. I'm so sorry, she whispered for the 100th time. If I could do it all over. My voice cracked. We can't, but we have to survive what's next. She nodded, tears slipping silently. I heard our daughter sniffle behind me. My own eyes stung, but I didn't let the tears fall this time. It was late when I finally left the house. I paused at the door, looking back at the living room. That was the place I once thought I'd grow old in, that I'd fill with laughter and holiday parties and grandchildren. Now it felt like an echo chamber of regrets. Still, I stepped outside into the cool night air, letting the door close softly behind me. In the following weeks, I did my best to move forward. My daughter and I developed a new normal. She'd spend half her time with me, half with her mother, and she seemed calmer, less haunted by our hostility. Catherine and I spoke occasionally by phone. Short, civil conversations about scheduling or finances. No more venom. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. One afternoon, my back pain flared so badly I had to leave work early. I ended up lying on my living room floor, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the paint. I thought about how the tension in my body was like a memory of betrayal. I'd carried the weight of her infidelity in my muscles, refusing to let it go. At some point, I closed my eyes. The quiet hush of the condo wrapped around me. I don't know how long I stayed like that, drifting. But eventually, something loosened inside my chest, a small release of breath. I realized that no matter how far I took my vengeance, it wouldn't erase the betrayal. It wouldn't bring back the man I used to be, the illusions I once clung to. I felt the tears slip down the sides of my face into my hair. They were hot, stinging. And in that moment, I tasted the bitterness of my own anger, recognized it as part of me, realized I had a choice: keep feeding it, or let it pass through me. I don't know if I forgave her that day, but I forgave a part of myself, for not being enough, for failing to see the cracks in our marriage, for wanting revenge so badly I'd sold my own peace in the process. The next time I saw Catherine was a week later. She was dropping off our daughter at my condo. She waited at the curb, engine idling. I told my daughter to go on ahead. Then I walked up to the driver's side window. She rolled it down, looking at me with wary eyes. We exchanged a few words about schedules. Then, before she could drive away, I said quietly, "I'm letting it go." She looked confused. "Letting what go?" "All of it," I replied, and I tried to keep my voice steady. "The anger, the revenge. It's done." Her lips parted, and tears glistened in her eyes. She nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered, as if those words could hold everything we'd destroyed. I stepped back, and she pulled away. I watched her car disappear around the corner. My back still ached, but it felt slightly more tolerable, like the muscles were slowly unlocking from a long, punishing grip. That night, I told my daughter I loved her and meant it. She smiled in relief, like we'd finally broken a curse. We ate dinner together at the small table in my condo. Nothing fancy, just pizza delivery. But there was a sense of warmth there, in the jokes we shared, in the simple closeness of father and child. A few days later, Catherine asked if I could come by her apartment. She said she needed help moving a piece of furniture. I hesitated, but I agreed. I showed up, found her struggling to push a heavy dresser across the room. The walls were newly painted a pale blue. She said she wanted a fresh start. I helped her move the dresser, ignoring the occasional twinge in my back. Afterward, we stood there, sweating and breathing heavily. She offered me water. I took it, gulped it down. Then she said, quietly, "I'm so sorry I hurt you, if there's ever a way to make it up." "There isn't," I said, "but we can try to be better people tomorrow." She nodded, tears forming. I sighed, bracing myself. "We're not going back," I said, searching her face. "But maybe we can move on." She wiped her eyes and gave a faint, shaky smile. "I hope so." I left soon after. On the drive home, a storm began. Rain hammered the windshield, lightning illuminated the sky. Traffic slowed to a crawl. I felt my back muscles knotting up as I gripped the steering wheel. But for some reason, I found myself breathing through the pain, letting each wave of tension subside. By the time I reached the condo, the storm had passed. There was only a misty drizzle, shimmering under the streetlights. I stepped out of the car, took a deep breath. The air smelled of wet pavement and possibility. Inside, I peeled off my damp jacket and noticed the old vinyl record leaning in the corner, the same album that used to define our better days. I considered throwing it out, but something stopped me. Maybe some memories are worth keeping, not because you want them back, but because they remind you of who you were and how far you've come. The next morning, I woke to a dull ache in my back. It was there, sure, but somehow it felt lighter, as if the knot was beginning to loosen. I got out of bed and paced around the living room. I stretched carefully, letting my spine decompress. The physical pain was still real, but my mind felt a fraction clearer. In the weeks and months that followed, we found a sort of rhythm. Catherine and I remained divorced. There was no talk of reconciliation, but we both tried to be present for our daughter. We met occasionally for school events, birthdays, moments that mattered. We were cordial, even kind at times. The tension hadn't vanished, but it was muted. My friend Kelvin called once more, wanting to gossip about Mike. I told him I wasn't interested. I sensed his surprise. Maybe he expected me to relish the downfall further. But I had nothing left to celebrate in the ruin of that man's life. Gradually, the new normal settled in. Some nights, I'd lie awake, feeling that old pang of regret. But then I'd remind myself, this is the price. I'd chosen revenge, and it had ravaged me from the inside out. I couldn't undo it. All I could do was move forward. One evening, I was sitting alone in my condo's small living room. The lamp cast a warm glow on the walls. My daughter was staying with Catherine for the night. I was free to do anything. Go out, watch a movie, drown in whiskey. Instead, I just sat there, listening to the hum of the air conditioner. My back twinged, but I let it come and go. Memories rose up. The day I bought that salmon, lit those candles, the bright red scarf with monogrammed initials that weren't hers, my daughter's knowing eyes. The silent week I spent punishing her with coldness. Kelvin's dark grin promising me payback. The final moments of the divorce hearing under a bleak sky. My ex-wife crying, broken, while I sat silent with triumph turning to ash in my mouth. It all played in my head, a montage of mistakes and shattered illusions. But for once, the images didn't fill me with burning anger. Instead, I felt a low, steady ache, like a bruise that's begun to heal, tender to the touch. I realized in that quiet room that I was alive. Not happy, not unscared, but alive. And maybe in time, I'd learn how to be content again. Maybe I'd find a way to open my heart, if not to Catherine, then to the man I wanted to become. I closed my eyes, breathed in. In the hush of the condo, I almost heard my father's voice telling me that life is about carrying on, no matter how heavy your burdens. The physical pain in my back flared one last time, like a farewell wound from the old me, the me who had to punish someone for hurting him. Then it ebbed, leaving behind a dull throb. I let out a shaky breath, whispering into the stillness, "I'm okay." No one was there to hear me, but it didn't matter. I'd said it, and I almost believed it. That's how the truth finally sounded. In a room that felt outside of time, just me and the echo of my own voice, tasting the bitterness, but not choking on it anymore.